All right, so Chad, let's start with having you introduce yourself a little bit and tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so hi, thanks for the introduction, Sam, and thanks for inviting me to chat a little bit today. So our firm is in Philadelphia. I know we're going to go through some of the history, so I won't hit you with that twice. But long story short, I really started building this practice right out of Penn State. Kind of went from that generalist into a very heavy niche-specific clientele at this point, and there's been plenty of hiccups and learning events along the way, which we'll share through today. Current setup is me as the lead advisor. I have an assistant. Her name is Maria. She's wonderful. We have a great paraplanner. His name is Jeff. He's a CFP as well. My wife is still listed on our website. I will say that she is the family CEO for the most part now with those two wild boys. But I'm looking forward to sharing kind of that whole journey and some of the tips and tricks that we have from, again, just trials and tribulations of what has worked and what hasn't worked. So, and I think I led with this, but we're located in Philadelphia as well.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And Chad and I go way back. We've known each other since we were both based up here in State College in Happy Valley. I don't know if we have any other PSU fans on the line today. But if you want to follow along with Chad after we are done with today's session as well, you can connect with him on Twitter. That's his handle, is @WealthKeel, or on LinkedIn, it's Chad Chubb. I know many of you have attended our sessions before, but just in case you're brand new here, I'm Samantha Russell. I'm our Chief Marketing and Business Development Officer here at 20 over 10. And we do a webinar every single month where we are just sharing best practices, answering questions advisors want to know the answers to. You can connect with me on Twitter and LinkedIn at those two places, Samantha20 or Samantha C. Russell. And before we completely dive in, I just want to point out on our 20over10.com page, if you click on Learn, we have a few sessions coming up that I think might excite you. The number one that we've been requested the most is video marketing from start to finish. So we are going to go behind the scenes, showing you our YouTube channel, how we upload videos, how we add captions, how we build our subscriber list, how we put the transcripts and the captioning on the video, everything soup to nuts to help you grow your own video marketing strategy. So register for that. You just go to 20over10.com/webinars, or you click the Learn button and you can sign up there. All right, so the 4 things that we're covering today are the 4 things we just mentioned in the poll. Just wanted to point those out. But first, Chad, and you don't need to go through all of this in one fell swoop, but let's talk about, your journey and start with, this sort of timeline back in 2015. So take us back to that time and what was happening.
Yeah, so even before 2015, I was in a very fortunate spot where I had a great mentor, but I had an advisor that kind of the story that you hear doesn't exist. The story does exist, but I had an advisor that started mentoring me. His name's Eric Dare. He's up in State College. Wonderful advisor on his own, allowed me to be his paraplanner. But the cool thing was he allowed me to start building my practice behind the scenes well before WealthKeel. So going back to 2011, 2015 was pretty much CFP, WealthKeel became real things. But that gave me a unique spot to really, I think, get a big trajectory right out of the start. So even before 2015, I think there were some big moving parts that really helped. So 2015 was just really when this vision started to come together. When I started building the practice back in 2011, it wasn't until 2015 that it started to feel real. So past the CFP, I had conversations with Eric, knowing that, hey, we love State College, but we think we're probably going to make a transition out of here. My wife, it was my high school sweetheart. So we were at Penn State together and trying to figure out kind of what those next steps were. So 2015, we started that journey to Philadelphia. And really, it wasn't until 2015, and really even 2016, that we started to kind of get into that niche. And it wasn't anything that we looked for. It was really one of those things where we were having conversations with all of our new friends that we were creating around the city here. And Philadelphia is a big medical city, and lots of residents, lots of fellows, lots of young families, very similar spot to us. And that's where the interest started to kick in on all these moving parts, medical contracts, buying a house, starting a family, all these big moving parts. Student loans, obviously, is probably the biggest one I should have started with. All those big moving parts. And it just started to really spark my interest on, I always wanted to work with our peers, our Gen X, our Gen Y, our friends. But it was hard to market to that group. So at one point we started off as high income professionals. And then from there, we just kind of started going, okay, well, what's next? What's next? I think Michael Kitches always says, go niche, weird. And that's kind of the way that we felt. I don't think we're in a weird niche per se, but I think we kind of kept going that way to get into where can we get to that's very niche heavy. And as we'll really cover today, I think the best part about a niche is it just makes a lot of the marketing, a lot of your pricing structure, a lot of your expertise just gets a little bit easier. And I feel like I can say that only because we started off more as that generalist. So I think, you know, as you see the timeline there, it transitions that way.
So back in 2011 till just about 2015, you're a paraplanner with another advisor. You're helping him, but you're also able to take on some of your own clients. Then you move to Philadelphia. You start meeting these friends of yours that are also physicians. And so that's what sparked your interest. At that time, how many clients would you say that you had, like percentage wise, that didn't fit that mold? And how did you navigate? You mentioned that you started, you know, your website back at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you, let me just pull up your website so everyone can see here. Let me know if you can see that. Okay. So I know your website didn't look like this at that time. What did your website say back in 2015 when you started, when you were more of a generalist? How were you marketing yourself at that time?
That's a good question. You might have to pull that up in the 20 over 10 archives.
The good news is your archives will allow you to do it.
Yeah.
I kind of remember because you were probably one of our first clients, is that I remember it being focused on the idea of your brand and what the keel of a boat is and how it helps you navigate waters and be a guide, more playing off that brand. That's what I remember.
Exactly. So the initial brand all started with that. And we still really like our name. So the keel of the boat keeps you from tipping over. So when we start working with a client, we always said, hey, your financial plan is your keel. It keeps you from tipping over, and we build everything around your keel. So the story still makes sense. It's not, physicianfinancialadvisor.com or anything like that, but obviously all of our marketing is geared to that. So yeah, and when we were in that generalist, it was more of a general idea. Like, that's a great point, Sam, where pretty much our whole website was based on our branding, not on who we were trying to talk to. We were in that general, mostly baby boomers, individuals with assets to retire. And we started around 16, starting to get into like, hey, high income young professionals. And then we had that transition, but early on it was very, very, very general.
Right. I think one of the things that's really interesting that we find, and raise your hand here if you agree with this, it's really hard to write copy for the homepage of your website. And it's even harder, everybody's raising their hand, I love it. It's even harder if you are more of a generalist and you don't have a niche, because you're trying to think of like what's going to resonate with people, what's going to make them excited. And so, you did a good job of playing on your brand. But at the end of the day, we always say the number one tip we have about writing website copy is being problem solution focused. So what is a problem that your clientele has, and what is a solution you provide? So now that you've honed in on your niche so much, you can explicitly say financial planning for Gen X and Gen Y physicians. We help you navigate the complexity of life by giving you a streamlined plan so that you can free up time to focus on your family, your practice. You can get so specific when you have a niche, whereas otherwise you're sort of saying, helping you get to financial freedom or something really generic that doesn't resonate as much.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's the biggest benefit to having a niche, is it from a writing perspective. And again, even going the whole way down to our fee model, it's just a lot easier when pretty much every person that's, quote unquote, walking through your doors is in that same, that same avatar, I guess would be the word that we can utilize, that many of us kind of used in the past. So it definitely gets much easier with the niche side of things.
Okay. So before we go into the second year, just tell us one thing, because I get this question all the time. Were you ever nervous as you started to define your niche, but you also had your legacy clients that didn't fit that niche, about how you would navigate marketing your business to this new niche, but not alienating your other clients?
Yeah. That's the question we get a lot too. I can tell you now that we've done it for 5 years that we have not had a client leave because they go to our website and see, Gen X and Gen Y physicians. And I think we did a good job front running that too, and just explaining like, hey, we still know how to do all the parts of financial planning, but for us, we'll even say, like, from just a marketing perspective, it was much easier for us to build this brand and go after this specific niche. And I always use the example too, where I might not know the Medicare question or the Social Security claiming strategy right off the top of my head anymore. I'll do the same amount of research. It'll take me a little bit more time, but we still know that we can provide good financial planning, compared to now the opposite side, where someone comes to us with student loans and just at high income, and from a tax perspective, that's the side that we know very quickly now. So we have not had any clients leave us. I think it's one of those things, just kind of lay out the ground rules so they know that, so they're not caught off guard. But for the most part, like I said, we don't even really get questions on it. And we still drive a lot of clients back to our website to use our client login there. So we know that they see the site, but we haven't had any issues. And, 5 years later, initially early on, Sam, it was a little bit scary, especially when you didn't have that base yet.
Right.
You start having an exodus of clients. We don't have enough clients that we can lose a handful at that point and not be affected. But that seems to always be the scary part.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things I tell people all the time is, typically your clients, yes, will go back and go to the client login, but are they really reading all the pages of your website once they're your client? No, they're going to read the blog post you send them or the newsletter. They're going to go to the client login, but they're not reading everything with a fine tooth comb.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we've identified our niche, and you start thinking about, okay, how do I get in front of more of these people? Yeah, you have some friends that might be physicians, but you mentioned here in 2016 is when you began presenting at Thomas Jefferson. So can you tell us a little bit about that and how that came to be?
Yeah. 2016 was the year of fake it until you make it. So we were writing content and researching like you would have thought we only work with physicians at this point. And we truthfully had pretty much no paying physician clients. We essentially had very early on, when it was like my first year, and they would assign orphan accounts. I think we had 2 physicians because they were orphaned accounts, but we made it sound like our entire book of business was a group of physicians, but it wasn't. So for us early on, we started offering free financial plans to some of the chief residents at Thomas Jefferson, which gave us speaking opportunities. But when we'd go in and speak at the medical schools or at the hospitals, we were not presenting on, hey, buy disability insurance, or, go buy whole life insurance. We were literally going in and talking about 2 things: student loans, because that's very overwhelming when pretty much everyone has at least 6 figures, if not, a very mid to high 6-figure number on student loans, and cash flow. So it was more or less building that trust and not trying to, I don't want to use the word sales in a bad context, but essentially it was more or less, we wanted to teach, we wanted to help them learn.
Educational over selling.
Yeah, exactly. And from what you kind of hear out there, and what they would see before, it was usually the opposite of that, where someone was trying to come in and sell them something, usually in the form of disability. Not saying that they don't need disability at that point. That's a huge part of their financial plan. But I think it was just a different context, which just started to get things rolling. And really that bottom part there, the CNBC, that small gesture from CNBC to let us write a guest column, to me, that's the point where it finally felt like, okay, now we're really going to go with this thing. And it just started giving us more context. It started giving us a little bit more expertise in that field. So if anyone searched and we had that article pop up, it was just starting to build that, he does work with physicians and young physicians. So 2016 was really that transition year of, again, I always use the term fake it till you make it.
So tell us though, people love the specifics. How did you actually get Thomas Jefferson to allow you to do it? Did you have a contact there? Did you cold email someone? What was your process?
I got really drunk on wine with my neighbor, who was the chief resident at Thomas Jefferson. So one of my, where we lived in a cool little alleyway off the Italian market in Philly, South Philly. And he lived across the street. He was living in a house with some of our best friends in Philly to this day. Just started talking about things. And it was really funny because when I look back on it, Both him and then the chief resident after him, they were to this day, they're like the only two physicians I've ever met that didn't have student loans, which kind of took out like half the problem. But we did free financial plans for them. Pretty much showed them a lot of the things with student loans and why they're like, well, student loans doesn't affect me, but I can tell you like that's the thing we talk about every day at lunch. And they got it approved through Jefferson. We sent them some slides. You know, there was a little bit of time from the approval process just because truthfully, I still think these larger hospitals like seeing someone like Northwestern Mutual because they know it's a big brand compared to Chad Chubb at WealthKeel, which, you know, has a nice website, but it's just him by himself. So that took a little bit, but it literally was just kind of reaching out. And then from that point, we just kept interviewing. We would literally go interview physicians, kind of building from that one and just asking questions and taking notes and then taking that and building it into a presentation. So it wasn't any special context, you know, red wine.
You're asking
does a good job.
You're actually asking the people you want to serve what questions they have and what they most need help with.
Asking them, literally sitting down with them, buying them lunch or coffee and saying, what are your pain points? And then at the end of it, just pretty much saying, thank you for your time.
Love that. Love that. It's such a simple thing that people forget. You can ask people and they will usually, people are nice, especially if you flatter them. Another question people had was, tell us how you got the CNBC article. Did you just cold pitch them? Did you have a contact there? Did you look it up on your own? Did you have a PR person? How did that happen?
Nope, no PR. That was, again, I guess I'm just really good at cold emailing, but one of the main writers from CNBC did a panel at the FPA conference in Baltimore, I believe it was, and did a speaking event. I actually had to leave early, so I couldn't actually go up and talk to him after, but I just sent him an email after just saying, hey, Jim, I appreciate everything that you said. I thought that was very helpful. And reached out and said, hey, I think there's a really unique idea here where it doesn't really get much attention. And he's like, well, send me some ideas. And we sent over a few ideas. We kind of changed a little bit. And then we did one where we sent out like a survey monkey and we had like literally 6 people respond. And we wrote this entire post on like, well, 100% of those 6 people said they have student loan issues. He's like, well, how many people were in the survey? I was like, I think like 6 or 7. He's like, yeah, that can't go live on CNBC. He's like, just kind of take that, but you know, massage it the right way, that don't use survey results. So we kind of redid the whole thing and then he sent it out live and, you know, one thing led to the next.
So did you start to see a direct correlation between, so let me take a step back here. For those of you that might not realize, getting a link from a major publication like a CNBC, a New York Times, those sites have something that's called high domain authority. And why that's important is if you're trying to get your website to rank higher, you want to get links, backlinks from these high domain authority sites. So getting, you know, your friend who's a CPA to link to your site is not going to give you the SEO boost that a link from CNBC will. So what did you start to see, whether it was with traffic or people reaching out to you after that article went live?
Yeah, so the first thing that was really cool was we had a physician just call us and they left us a voicemail. And they're like, I just want to let you know, I enjoyed that article so much. Like you really hit what we're going through from these young medical professionals. And for me, that was the first time of anything like that. Never became a client. We didn't pitch him anything. It was just nice to hear someone say like, wow, that was like, you really hit the ball out of the park there. And that's where I said that one event kind of just started to solidify, hey, I think this is our niche. I think this is what we really, really want to focus on now. And that article got us in contact with an individual called Jason Mazzell. Jason runs essentially he's a physician down at University of Arkansas. He pretty much said, hey, this is exactly what we teach in this course. That's great work. And then we had some contacts here and there, but then, you know, 2 years ago, he invited us down to Nashville. We spoke at a huge conference for colon and rectal surgeons with, you know, literally, I think there's like 2,000 or 3,000 surgeons that come in. And it's just, you don't expect that. That's kind of the crazy thing about content. I wish it was like you send it out and 14 people come knocking on the virtual doors, but you kind of build that, you know, whether we call it evergreen content or just kind of having those good backlinks. It feels like now, 4 to 5 years later, now we're starting to see all of that really have a big effect. So that one article just set us up nicely, I think, for the trajectory going forward.
Right. Okay. No, that's a great point. And I think to your point about content and you never know what might happen, for all of you on the phone, and Chad's going to talk a little bit more because he did end up working with a PR firm for a stint, but you don't need a PR firm to email journalists. To his point, you know, whether you get someone's name, if you go to a lot of news sites, there are sections where they will talk to you. They'll have a whole page. If you'd like to be considered for contributing content, here's what we suggest. And, you know, a good rule of thumb is look at what the person who you're pitching has written about before, be able to speak about that topic. So if you're trying to pitch an article about student loans, you want to look and find somebody who's also published pieces about the student loan crisis in America. Email them and say, hey, I saw your piece on X, Y, or Z. We actually have an interesting take based upon work we've done with doctors and their student loan debt. I'd love to send you a quick outline of what that article is, or just send it there, but make it really easy for them to get a sense of what your article's about, link back to your website, and that is a great way to do it. Another resource you can use is something called HARO, H-A-R-O. So if you all right now want to find an easy way to connect with journalists and reporters, it stands for Help a Reporter Out. So it's a free service you can sign up for, and journalists who are writing stories who need a quick person to get an answer from will put their request in HARO and you can answer them. And a tip that I have, a couple tips, is make sure when you answer them, you answer their question. You have your bio, your little quick bio, and your headshot there. So if they want to use your information, they don't have to email you back and say, hey, I'm going to use it. Can you send me your headshot and your bio? That you make your answers very succinct and easy to understand, and you answer the prompt. Don't go off in a million different directions. Just answer the prompt. So again, that's HARO. Amanda's linking to it in the chat box, but that's a great way to get connected with reporters. It really helps if you already have a website with a blog where you're showing your thought leadership on those same topics, right? So if somebody went and looked up Chad right now, and I'll just pull up his website, you know, they're going to land on his website here, and they're going to see, right? So they come here, they're going to land here, and those journalists are going to come in here under blog and be able to see that, you know, he's got pieces on relevant topics. So that's really helpful for you to be publishing your pieces already on your own blog. But that's a great way to get started. We have a lot of questions coming in, so maybe we'll take a minute and just answer some of these.
The other one to add on there, Sam, is if you're a member of the FPA, that FPA media inquiry, early on, that's where we got a lot of our good media quotes by, they sent out, you got to get approved through the program, very simple to do. But that was where we got a lot of those early on good publications, because they would send emails out because they want quotes from CFPs. And you, same thing, send a good quick little note. And that was one that really helped us early on too. We don't utilize it as much today because we're not searching for that as much, but early on, that was a really big help. Okay, that's a great tip. So that's the FPA program for those of you who are interested. A couple questions going back to your point before about when you were talking with, you know, actual other physicians and asking them questions to interview them so you could learn more about this niche. You know, one of the things I think you made a good point about fake it till you make it is people will say, well, I don't know how to choose a niche. I don't have an expertise in doctors or tech entrepreneurs or whatever the niche might be. And to your point, you know, you just pick one and start learning it. You don't have to know to get started. I think that's, you know, the thing about life, right? We all pick a field and we learn as much as we can about it. But what kinds of questions, somebody wants to know, would you ask, if you could, you know, maybe elaborate on that a little bit more, that were really helpful or telling to get you inside their head and what they'd be, you know, would be most helpful to them? Yeah. And you know, choosing a niche for us too was, we knew we wanted to work with our peers that were in that same stage of life. So that's why you'll see Gen X and Gen Y all over the you know, all of our marketing now. And then from there, I truly liked how complicated the actual financial planning process was for physicians, because they go from $70,000 a year to $250,000 or more. They probably have, we just had new clients sign on literally $1 million of household student loans. So that level of complication got me really to focus on that niche. But to answer that initial question, truthfully, I think it's Carl Richards, or I know I heard it from Carl Richards, but others, but literally just kind of ask those open-ended questions. We would literally say, you know, what are your pain points? You know, what things do you worry about? What things keep you up most at night? And then just, you know, shut it down, let them talk. People love talking, ask them good questions. So I'm a diligent note taker. I'm literally sitting here on now and I've already taken 2 pages of notes. And it's one of those things where just take some good notes, let them finish their idea, and then you probably already have a note that you can build on. So it literally, I think I had a sheet back then. I swear I only had 3 questions on it. It was pretty much, what are your pain points? What keeps you up at night? I think there may have been one before, kind of tell me about your life story or something like that. So nothing very specific, but just letting them talk. And if you let someone talk long enough, they'll give you kind of those things that are keeping them up at night.
Right. Right. I think the point about taking detailed notes is so important, and using the wording that the person you're interviewing uses. So one of the things about search engine optimization and allowing people to find your site, if somebody searches for a planner that works with physicians, a financial advisor that works with physicians in Philly, Chad's coming up right at the top of the page. SEO is playing a really important role in this. And one of the things that's important is to use the terminology, the wording that your potential clients use. So don't talk about it in the language you use with your colleagues or your peers in the industry, but use the language they use. And you can use that, keep that in your notes. Just to switch gears for a second, because it's sort of applicable now when you talk about services. So at some point during all of this, you went from being more of an AUM focus to a subscription focus. Can you talk about how that either affects, how that happened? And then also, did your choice of niche play into that at all? Or wanting to offer just planning to some of these physicians? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it did. Again, this is where there's so many different fee structures out there. But for us, it simply came down to what made the most sense for our niche. We have households that have over $1 million of household income, but yet they still have a negative net worth. That doesn't bode well for an AUM model. It's going to take a while to get to a fee that you're comfortable with. So for us, we started to kind of ease into the subscription model, going the whole way back to 2016 or 17. I think even 2016 it was, with some of our initial clients actually. So not even our physicians, but our young Gen X and Gen Y, where that model started to make sense, where, hey, for $100 or $150 a month, I think we literally started $100 a month. We're going to do everything. We're going to be really comprehensive on the financial planning side. We'll also, manage the investments. We utilize a TAMP. So we'd always disclose, they have their own basis points as well that we want to, walk through and make sure you understand. But for us, a flat fee subscription makes the most sense. High income, not high net worth yet. We also were we get a lot of referrals from the white coat investor. That took many years. We all know that Dr. Dolly sometimes seems a little bit anti-advisor, but I promise you all, he's a good guy. And he's kind of helped mold that model. Also, Rick Ferry has been an individual that has helped me a lot over the past 2 years on just kind of understanding, for what I would say is fair pricing and good value for that. So just changing that over time has been a unique model. But coming back to it too, our baby boomer clients, a lot of them, pretty much every single one of them is still on an AUM model. Now we cap our fees, we do a few unique things there, but for the most part, we see both sides of it. I think AUM still makes a lot of sense for baby boomers because they're pretty much kind of transitioning to the opposite, where their income is going to slow, but their AUM or their assets that they have available are higher. For us, we're on the opposite side of that scale. So that's why subscription model makes a lot of sense for our clients.
That makes perfect sense. Somebody wants to know, getting lots of questions in the chat, the Q&A box. Does your flat fee also include asset management? And does the flat fee change based upon the amount of investment assets that you manage, or, the amount that the client might have in a 401k, et cetera?
Yeah. So this will come back to, we have 2 ways to look at investment management. I think many of you would be amazed by how many clients actually pay us a nice monthly fee for them to still manage their money at Vanguard, but they want our eyes on it. They want us to watch over it. They want our input on, hey, we should rebalance. There's been some portfolio drift here, or things are a little bit too complicated. Let's shift it here. But for the most part, it looks like this. If they want to delegate that to us, we utilize a TAMP. Most of the time we use a TAMP out of State College called Vicus Capital. Very good fee structure. pretty much starts at 33 bips and then works their way down, depending on what model you're using. For the model we use, that's where they start. So we'll explain that to them, and we'll say, hey, they're going to have a separate fee on this side to do that. Now we'll go through that in a whole proposal. So that fee is a whole separate fee. Our fee, if you click on that little thing there, Sam, that says learn more about WealthKeel's flat fees.
There you go.
We essentially have 2 tiers for household income, and then 3 tiers for household net worth. I am a huge fan of The Office. I think I've watched The Office, the whole series from start to finish, probably 10 times now. So we use the Scott family, the Schrute family, the Hudson family, and the Halperts. So you can see everyone starts at 300. If your income's above 500, we add 125. If it's above $1 million, we add 300,000. But then you also come to this tier. So if your income or household net worth, which we're very lenient on this number, pretty much it's what assets would be able to have AUM on them, or their 401k. We're not looking at houses or rental properties or anything like that. So we pretty much use this 3 tier, and then we cap our fees. So the most you could ever be at for us is $1,100 per month. The lowest you could be at is $300 per month. So we kind of have those built into it. We got this finalized about 2 years ago. I feel like we changed it about 20 times, almost daily for a period of time. And now I think we got one that makes sense.
Okay, great. I know there's some other questions people still have about fees, and if we have time, we'll get back to that. But I want, in the interest of time, to still kind of go into the next year and talk a little bit more about the marketing strategy again, since that was something that so many of you wanted to know. So, sorry if I cut out there for a second, everybody. I just want to go back to talking a little bit more about the marketing strategy. So, we talked about, you working with White Coat Investor, and you had mentioned in a recent email to me that you were also now on the Physician on Fire recommended advisor list. So can you hear me okay, Chad?
Yeah, no, I can. I think someone just fell through my wall.
Oh, can you talk a little bit about, getting involved with these organizations, these websites, and how you went about it? Like, did you just submit cold there as well?
So Physician on Fire and White Coat Investor are essentially paid spots, but they have to approve you before you get onto that list. That was kind of part one, and then staying on there for a long period of time really helped as well. So for those, really, I consider them, centers of influence. It was more or less getting on their list and then getting approved, which, again, they like the flat fee model. They're looking at stuff like that. If any of you know Dr. Dolly, the White Coat Investor, very anti-permanent life insurance. So he makes you fill out a whole application beforehand. And that's kind of where we started. And truthfully, Sam, that actually happened from, I think it was either an XYPN or Kitch's podcast, where one of the advisors pretty much said, like, hey, I'm on White Coat Investor, and I said some crazy number, like I'm getting like 2 or 3 inquiries per day or per week. And I was like, no way, get out of here. That's crazy. So initially I signed up, and it didn't end up being that amount early on. And I was like, well, this stinks. Like, I thought this was going to be like our go-to marketing. So it was more or less, we heard about it, then we got into it. But I think the focus we continued to give to it, we put a lot of our marketing dollars and a lot of our time and energy to the White Coat Investor, because he's a big name out there. So, when you find that niche, find the individuals out there that are one of the bigger influencers. We kind of hear that term, but utilizing that even in our industry, find the influencers out there, and spend some time with them, build a relationship with them like you would a new client. And I think that can really, really help things. I mean, for us, if you go look at our traffic numbers, pretty much, White Coat Investor and Physician on Fire are 2 of our biggest traffic sources. And it's just because we put time and energy into it to make sure that we're writing content for them, we're producing content for their niche so that they share, and then that continues to drive traffic back for us.
And have you always made it a priority to track the actual traffic and then, use that data to make new decisions? Just use Google Analytics?
Yeah. Early on, not really, Sam. That was, I watched all the 20 over 10 webinars. I'm good friends with you and Ryan, so I knew how important it was. But early on, because there wasn't much happening yet, it didn't mean much. Now we do have a lot of focus on. I mean, every blog post we write, we essentially have an SEO focus. Every meta description we put in, we're making sure that we're using the right keywords. And it's one of those things, again, it's not like you put in Philadelphia's top financial advisor and you pop up to Google or, you know, the #1 advisor for physicians. It takes a while to get that in there and get that out into the universe. But because we knew about it early on and then continued to kind of focus on it, and now we put a much larger focus on it, it's been a huge help. It takes a little bit.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. So I want to show people something that I think they'll find interesting. So let me share my screen again. So you do something called the WealthKeel Weekly, where you send a email out every single week called the WealthKeel Weekly, and you have your fun little party popper emoji that stands out in inboxes. So for those of you scared about using emojis, Chad does it really well to get more people to open it. So this goes out every single week, and the way that you've set it up is that at the top of the page, you will say, you know, what we've read this week, and you'll outline articles that you think are worth your subscribers' time. And some of them are posts that you've written, and some of them are curated pieces from around the web. And then at the bottom, you always have a section, a random note or thought for the week, where you're sharing oftentimes a personal story of something that's going on in your own life with your kids, DIY projects around the house, something like that. So can you talk to us a little bit about the evolution of this email? Does all your clients get it? Do prospects get it as well once you get their email? Do you have a separate email you send for clients versus prospects? What do you do for email marketing?
Yep. So we have 2 separate lists, but they all get the WealthKeel Weekly. So we have a few more lists than that, but we essentially have, hey, here's our prospect list, or even clients that came in for a one-time plan build and then they kind of moved on. And then we have our actual client list. But everyone gets this newsletter, our weekly newsletter. And again, this is one we got from Carl Richards. And I've never enrolled in any of Carl Richards' courses, but you can tell he has an effect on our industry. I just kind of like the way that he describes things. Just that more personal touch. So like this one that we're looking at now was more of a special edition, but usually exactly what you said, Sam, we usually have 3 articles. Sometimes it might be one of our new blog posts or one of our YouTube videos, but it's just things that we found interesting. Instead of just sharing the article, we'll put the Cliff Notes edition. You know, we'll put a few lines in there. I often make the joke now that I actually don't think anyone's reads the articles. They actually scroll down just to see like the personal updates. Usually it's because I'll try to bait everybody. I'll put pictures of our kids in there. So it's just keeping that personal touch. And I will say in moments like this too, it's a good way just to always have weekly content. Now we're not going to put our weekly updates. We're not going to put in there like, hey, you know, we think, you know, the new S&P target should be this, you know, it's not that type of newsletter. It's, hey, we're humans. We understand what's going on. We're watching this and giving those family updates. We get more clients to respond and prospects to respond on the personal side than we do any of the business articles. But it's one of those things that feels good when someone responds on something, whether it's a story about Riker or Xander or just another personal story. So something simple. I think I literally have an hour on my calendar every single Tuesday morning. I get it organized. Maria kind of does all the heavy lifting after that. I type it out. She spell checks me. I'm horrible at grammar. And then she gets everything out and then throws it out to everybody. So 1 hour per week. And that's my weekly content to all of our clients and prospects.
And what I love about this, a few things, and if you have one other takeaway from this, everyone who's on, is this part, you know, that we showed with this section that's personal. You know, maybe you have little kids and you could share a story about them. Maybe you are a bird watcher and you share a picture of a bird that you know, have seen. Maybe it's a flower that you've been watching grow. There's an advisor that I know who he always shares a YouTube clip from a song that was popular that month back in, and he'll pick a year, you know, 1982. It's the personal element of the newsletter that's going to get people to respond back, as Chad just said. And you're not the first person to say this to me. And all of our research shows the same thing. So when you're creating this news content, you know, show the person behind the brand. People connect with other people before they connect with brands. Having the other pieces, though, is important. You don't want to just send personal updates. You want to keep it professional, and it's also helpful to people, but they just often, that's not the thing that helps them remember you or reinforces you in their mind. But I loved in this part, so many people have asked, like, what should I be doing right now with the pandemic and with everything going on with the economy? I thought this was such a beautiful example. You know, it's not like some styled, designed email template. It's literally just, here's what's going on. Here's the cliff notes of what you need to know, because there's so much information out there. people want to have the advisor be the one distilling it down. They want you to be the level-headed source of information, not being clickbaity, you know, to help them figure out what they should be paying attention to. So I thought this was a beautiful example. And I love that you're answering this. 50% open rate. That goes to show you that people like the content you're putting out. A good open rate for anybody sending like a client newsletter would be anything 25% or higher. So 50% is fantastic. All right. I just wanted to show some of the numbers as well that we asked you to share. So I actually took the poll earlier on Twitter today, and I have another poll that we want all of you to answer. So let me just get that launched here. And we want to know, what are you spending right now budget-wise on marketing? So you can see here that Chad over time has gotten to this place. He didn't start out there, where he's now spending 10% of gross revenue on marketing. But we'd love to hear what all of you are spending. And there really is a journey to getting to this point. So while we're waiting for everyone to answer, Chad, where were you back in 2015 when you got started, percentage-wise, would you say?
I think we were at
$0.
It was zero to, at one point, the first year we did White Coat Investor, and I think Physician on Fire was like our biggest marketing spend. I think a total that year was like 3,000. White Coat Investor increased his prices dramatically, but we also started to get a lot more involved in things because we started to see the traffic. So at that point, when you're seeing success somewhere, start throwing more marketing dollars there, as long as it makes sense from a client acquisition cost. So for us, it has, and it continues to this day. So that's one of those where it started at zero, and it's increased to literally almost exactly 10% for 2019. Right now it's trending towards right around 10%. It might be a little bit less if the year continues at the current pace from a new client perspective, but I think that's been a good number, the last 2 years.
So if you haven't voted already, go ahead and vote. Only 50% of people have voted so far. But we want to hear, what are you currently spending on your marketing budget? So the average advisor is spending about 1% to 2%, is what our research has shown. So a lot of times people will say, how did somebody get these great results? And it really often does come back down to they spent money on it. And can you talk a little bit about where your budget goes now? Do you hire people to help with it? Like, how do you allocate that budget?
Yep. So we call it centers of influence. So our COIs are pretty much where we're putting a lot of money. Most of that goes to the White Coat Investor, whether it's being on his advisor list, whether it's sponsoring one of his podcasts. He does a scholarship every year that we like to put money towards, and it gets us on all of his lists. So it's good. One, you're supporting a good cause, but you're also getting good marketing as well. Same with Physician on Fire. We'll put some money towards there. So that's a big chunk of it there. That's almost half of that 10% of the budget. And then the other half, which has started really late, it started about 2019. And now this year, we're really making a bigger focus on it. It's just our content writer. So we have a great content writer that helps us with getting the blogs ready. We also did a full website revamp this year. We did our own ebook that she helped us with that we plan to get live hopefully in the next week or so. So that's where the other part of it goes. And then we have another, just our marketing budget for our current clients, having cards for the holidays. We like to do, we got this one from FinTwit at the last holiday season, where my son and I went over to Walmart and we covered, the layaway bills for a few families instead of providing gifts to our clients this year. And then we kind of sent that. We do Uber Eats gift cards for new babies that come in. We send champagne for big things through wine.com. So that's about another, like a smaller portion of it, but that's another good marketing spend. But those three alone usually takes up most of the marketing dollars for the year. Okay.
So you are definitely in the minority. The poll results are in, and 44% are spending 0 to 2%, 36% 3 to 5%, 11% 6 to 9%, and only 9% 10% or more. So, for those of you here, I think one of the things to pay attention to that a lot of people struggle with is you need content. It's the backbone of your marketing. So if you're not going to write it, you have a few choices. You can pay someone, as Chad mentioned, to write it, for you, completely custom. You can have somebody on staff that helps you write it. We at 20 over 10 know this is one of the biggest issues people face. So we have a content library in the 20 over 10 blog post where you can take any of the pieces and make them completely your own, whether you're adding video, customizing them. It's a great starting point. Same thing with our Lead Pilot platform. So if you don't have a 20 over 10 website and you're looking for great content, you can go to leadpilot.io right now. We're doing a 30-day trial and you can sign up there. All of the content in these libraries is completely customizable. So if you have a piece like Chad was mentioning how he'll make things very specific to, physicians. Can you still see my screen, Chad?
Yep, I got it.
Okay. So, let's say, there's a piece on, let's just find one, a guide to managing your money during the COVID pandemic. Don't just share a piece like that. You want it to be specific to your audience and who you're trying to connect with. So, changing things to, do like doctors in Philly, right? And make it specific to your audience. That is so crucial. Whether you're writing the content yourself, if you're utilizing content in a content library to make it specific to your audience, you want to personalize that content so that when people see it on social media in their feed, or they go to your blog posts and your website, they're going to have, a sense of, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I'm looking for. This speaks directly to me. Okay. We have a lot of questions still, and I know we're at the top of the hour. I just want to point out a few things, and then we'll stay on until 4 o'clock, as long as that's good with Chad, to answer any other questions people have. If you are, again, looking for content right now, or you want to learn more about Lead Pilot, which I know there's a lot of interest in, if you go to leadpilot.io, you can either download some sample articles, you can book a time with someone from our team to learn more about the platform. It's 4 tools in one, so email marketing, social media scheduling, content, and landing pages. But if you sign up and you just create an account, you can start using the content right away, like I just showed you, and we automatically make all of the subscriptions free for 30 days. Is my connection unstable?
No,
okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Zoom is giving me a warning. So you can do that. Again, you can create an account on your own, start using the content right away. For those of you interested in 20 over 10 websites, it is a completely separate platform. So Chad's beautiful website you see right here is on the 20 over 10 platform. So he worked with our design team to create this beautiful site, but he has access on the back end to go in and to add all the blog posts that you see here, to make updates and customizations. And you can get a quote, talk with our team about that whole process if you go to 20over10.com. If you schedule a demo on either of the sites, it's the same sales and consulting team. So you can schedule a demo on either and they will work through it with you. But Chad's had a website on 20 over 10, as he mentioned, for years now. And as he mentioned, he just did a website revamp again. I think one of the important things, and you can agree with this, Chad, is having a platform that allows you to make updates and changes. So as you define your niche, as you hone in on a particular area, you don't have to scrap the site and start completely from scratch. You can update what you have.
Yeah, that was, the updates have been, I can't speak highly enough about 20 over 10. Obviously, I was just telling Sam before this call, their one designer, Michael, I asked Sam, I said, he has to be like a lead designer because he like redid our entire website in one night. I sent him a Loom video. I was like, hey, Michael, can you do this? Like, we want some more physician pictures. Let's move some of this wording over here. And the next morning he's like, all right, done and done. And I get on there and everything was perfect. It was just, it was pretty wild. It's one of those things where we just don't worry about our website. We know that we got a good team behind us, and whether we want to go from the generalist with, a sailboat theme to, hey, we only work with this specific niche, that transition was extremely easy for us from a website perspective and even the content side of things too.
Right. Well, thank you for that. And we love working with advisors, that especially when they're going through this process of establishing a niche. So we can start and make your website really more generalized, but we can also help you hone in on a niche. If you come to 20over10.com and you click showcase here, there's a lot of websites you can take a look at that have great examples for you to go through, and you can see, how we set things up. And then also, if you just search the blog here for the word niche, you can get some different ideas of how to set things up, how to go about it, wording, all that good stuff. So a couple more things that we just want to make sure. Again, let's see here. I'll keep this up while we're answering questions. So right now, because of, we know so many advisors, AUM fees took a hit, although the market has really rebounded in the last couple of days, but we're still offering this probably only for a little bit longer. You can get a 30-day free trial of Lead Pilot, and then using these codes, you can get 50% off for the remainder of the year. So it's a fantastic deal. We were offering it because the market was taking such a huge hit, and we know so many advisors AUM was suffering, but we wanted to still put great content in their hands and give them this platform. But if you, you know, are interested in learning more, again, go to leadpilot.io and sign up. So a lot of questions we still haven't answered yet. So let's go through as many as we can. So some people wanted to know, when you are, you know, sending out your like newsletters and you have the two different lists, are there differences in the actual content, like what you send to prospects versus clients, or is that just for tracking to see how they perform?
No, so the content's the same. The reason why we have two separate ones is if we do have specific client news, we don't share that with, you know, the overall, you know, hey, we sign up on your newsletter. So that's why we have two separate lists. We have a whole list for just, you know, our financial planning clients, advisory clients, but those two lists encompass everybody in some capacity. So the same content goes out to both of them. We just essentially separate it so that it's easier. We use ConvertKit for all these items. So it just gives us a little bit easier way to break those down. It does help with tracking too, but for the most part, it's just so that if we do have items that are specific to only our clients, we do only want to send it to that group. Like if we do investment updates, we'll send it to like the advisory list only. So that's the main reason.
Yeah, and we highly suggest segmenting your list into different groups for lots of reasons. Here's a couple examples, right? You could have a list of people that just work at one company, right? So if you really get niche focused, and maybe you have a list of people that work at ExxonMobil or that work at Thomas Jefferson Hospital, and you know, like benefit packages, you can get really, really specific with your list that way as well. Okay, I think we're almost out of time. We have quite a few questions about Lead Pilot specifically. And so for that, what I want to point you to is if you come to leadpilot.io and you click this join a webinar, we have sessions where we will talk all about Lead Pilot, this learn more about Lead Pilot, that you can sign up for there, or again, schedule a one-on-one call, and we'd be happy to go through all the specifics with you. A couple main takeaways: you do not need to be a 20/10 website customer to use Lead Pilot. They're two separate standalone platforms. If you're an advisor that is part of a larger firm that doesn't have a niche and you're trying to build your own niche, as Chad had mentioned, you know, really start honing in, what's great about Lead Pilot is, let's say you're with the company Lighthouse Capital, but you want to start working with your own specific group. All of the content in Lead Pilot is deployed on these branded landing pages that reinforce you as the individual advisor. So you could start pushing content out to your social pages, to your email, you know, group, and have a brand separate from your firm. That makes it a lot easier to connect with specific audience. You can still use the firm logo and everything if you want, but it can be specific to you. So just a couple other use cases for you to check out. Okay. Chad, I cannot thank you enough for all of your time today. There are so many questions that we didn't get a chance to get to. So what we'll do for those of you who still had questions is we will collect them from the chat box and we will pass them along to Chad, the ones that we cannot answer. And if he has time, we'll certainly have him reach out. He'll have your email and have him answer them. But again, if you want to connect with Chad on LinkedIn or Twitter, that's also a great place to get in touch with him and ask him any follow-up questions. And all of the slides and the full recording will be emailed out to everybody by Monday next week. So look for that in your inbox. Was there any other things that you wanted to mention or anything, Chad?
No, I tried to go through that. I didn't realize the Q&A box until now that they were being directed to me. So it started to give me a little bit of anxiety there. So I was trying to go through and give everyone a quick answer. But now that you just gave me that explanation, I feel much better. So yeah, I'll try to get to as many of those as I can. some of them, they were a little bit more context. So anything I could get a quick answer, and I was trying to get a few sent out there, but I wasn't trying to ignore people. I literally just figured it out right now. So
nope, that's okay. You
not
did
tech
you
savvy,
did
I
a
guess.
fantastic job. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Stay healthy. And again, as a reminder, if you go to 20 Over 10's website and you click learn, you can sign up for the video webinar we have next month. That's all about how to use video in your marketing strategy, how to host webinars, create video on your phone, upload it to YouTube, optimize your YouTube channel, and use it to drive new business for your company, because we know so many people are still going to be sheltering in place or quarantining or avoiding, public areas. So that will be a great webinar for you to join. Amanda has linked it in the chat box. We thank you all for your time today. I know you're busy, and have a great rest of the week.